In October 2012, a small tropical storm formed in the Caribbean. Honestly, no one imagined it would become one of the most destructive storms in modern American history. That storm was Hurricane Sandy. As Hurricane Sandy moved northward through the Atlantic, it began to undergo a dramatic transformation. What started as a relatively typical tropical storm soon began to grow in both size and intensity, surprising meteorologists and residents alike. The storm's outer bands stretched further and further, reaching out like the arms of a giant swirling system. Satellite images captured the storm's rapid expansion, showing a swirling mass of clouds that seemed to double in size almost overnight. As the days passed, Sandy's wind field grew, covering an area far larger than most hurricanes ever reach. The storm's energy was fueled by a unique combination of warm ocean waters and atmospheric conditions, allowing it to draw in moisture and power from hundreds of miles around. As Sandy intensified at sea, meteorologists watched in awe and concern. The storm's pressure dropped, its wind strengthened, and its reach expanded. Weather experts began to realize that this was no ordinary hurricane. The storm's size was unprecedented for the region and the season. Newsrooms buzzed with updates as forecasters tried to predict just how powerful Sandy would become. The storm's massive cloud shield could be seen from space, and its effects were felt hundreds of miles from the center. Ships at sea reported dangerous waves and gale-force winds, while coastal communities braced for impact. The National Hurricane Center issued warnings, but even seasoned experts were surprised by the storm's relentless growth. As the storm continued to grow, the media and the public began to grasp the true scale of what was unfolding. News outlets across the country started referring to Sandy as the Superstorm, a name that captured both its immense size and its unusual characteristics. The term quickly spread, appearing in headlines, on television broadcasts, and across social media. People everywhere watched in disbelief as images of the storm's vast cloud cover dominated the news. In homes, offices, and public spaces, Americans gathered around screens, tracking the storm's progress and sharing updates with friends and family. The sense of urgency and anxiety grew as it became clear that Sandy was unlike anything most people had ever seen. At its peak, Hurricane Sandy stretched more than 1,600 kilometers across, almost the size of the entire U.S. East Coast. To put that in perspective, the storm's diameter was more than double that of a typical Atlantic hurricane. Its massive wind field extended from the Carolinas all the way to New England, and from the Atlantic Ocean deep into the Midwest. Entire states were blanketed by clouds and battered by winds, with millions of people feeling the effects. The storm's sheer size meant that its impact would be felt far beyond the immediate coastline. Rain, wind, and flooding reached hundreds of miles inland, disrupting lives and infrastructure on an unprecedented scale. Meteorologists later described Sandy as one of the largest storms ever recorded in the Atlantic basin. Its size was so extraordinary that it challenged existing models and forced scientists to rethink what was possible for storms in this region. The legacy of Sandy's size would be felt for years to come, as communities rebuilt and experts studied the storm to better understand how such a massive system could form and evolve. Sandy's enormous reach was a stark reminder of the power of nature and a warning of the challenges that future storms might bring. On October 29th, Sandy slammed into the eastern United States, hitting New York and New Jersey the hardest. Waves surged inland, flooding streets tunnels, and subway lines. Millions of people were left without power as the city went dark. In late October 2012, as Hurricane Sandy battered the East Coast, New York City faced an unprecedented crisis. For the first time in its more than century-long history, parts of the New York subway system, one of the busiest and most iconic transit networks in the world, were completely underwater. The images were surreal. Entire subway platforms submerged, tunnels transformed into rivers, and the familiar hum of trains replaced by an eerie silence. The city that never sleeps was brought to a standstill, its lifeblood of public transportation halted by the sheer force of nature. The flooding of the subway was not just a logistical nightmare. It was a symbol of the storm's extraordinary power and the vulnerability of even the most advanced urban infrastructure. Engineers and emergency workers scrambled to assess the damage, pumping millions of gallons of water from the tunnels, while New Yorkers watched in disbelief as their daily routines were upended. The sight of water cascading down subway stairs and pooling on platforms became one of the defining images of Hurricane Sandy's wrath. When the storm finally passed, the scale of the devastation became heartbreakingly clear. Entire neighborhoods were left unrecognizable, with homes reduced to piles of debris and streets transformed into rivers of mud and wreckage. The storm surge had swept through coastal communities, leaving behind a trail of destruction that stretched for miles. In the days that followed, emergency response teams worked around the clock, rescuing stranded residents, providing food and shelter to those who had lost everything, and beginning the long process of recovery. Families who had evacuated returned to find their homes uninhabitable, their possessions ruined by floodwaters and mold. Volunteers from across the country poured into the region, offering support up for Holopapado shutout in the face of overwhelming loss. The human toll was staggering. More than 230 people lost their lives as a direct result of the storm, with many more injured or missing. Each number represented a story, a family torn apart, a community grieving, a future forever changed. The emotional impact rippled far beyond the immediate disaster zone, as friends and relatives across the nation mourned and rallied to help. The financial cost of Hurricane Sandy was almost unimaginable. In the weeks and months that followed, officials and experts tallied the losses, and the numbers kept climbing. The total cost reached over $70 billion, making Sandy one of the most expensive natural disasters in American history. The storm had destroyed thousands of homes and businesses, crippled vital infrastructure, and left entire communities facing years of rebuilding. Insurance claims flooded in, and government agencies mobilized massive relief efforts to help those affected. The economic impact rippled through every sector: transportation, energy, healthcare, and more. Small business owner faced bankruptcy, while city and state budgets were stretched to the breaking point. Yet amid the devastation, there were also stories of resilience and determination. Neighbors came together to clear debris, rebuild homes, al support one another, anopona nininopono posei tonafisor disi sorodo jidosashio the darkest days. The aftermath of Hurricane Sandy was a stark reminder of nature's power, but it also revealed the strength and spirit of the people determined to recover and rebuild, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of the hurricane, as the winds died down and the flood waters slowly receded, a new force began to rise, one not measured by the strength of the storm, but by the resilience of the people. Streets once bustling with daily life were now littered with debris, homes stood battered, and the air was thick with uncertainty. Yet, amid the devastation, something remarkable unfolded. The American spirit, forged through centuries of challenge and triumph, stood unbroken. Neighbors, many of whom had never spoken more than a passing hello, now found themselves side by side, united by a common purpose. They rolled up their sleeves, grabbed brooms and shovels, and began the painstaking work of cleaning up their neighborhoods. People swept debris from flooded streets, cleared fallen branches, and offered a helping hand to anyone in need. Families worked together to board up windows, while others shared tools and supplies, ensuring that no one was left to face the aftermath alone. In these moments, the boundaries that once separated people, age, background, or circumstance, seemed to dissolve, replaced by a sense of shared responsibility and hope. Local businesses opened their doors, donating water and food to those who had lost everything. Children, eager to help, handed out sandwiches to volunteers, their smiles a beacon of optimism amid the chaos. Elderly residents, often the most vulnerable, were assisted by younger community members who made sure they had shelter and support. The sense of community was palpable, a living testament to the enduring strength of the American spirit. But the response didn't stop at the neighborhood level. From across the country, volunteers and rescue teams mobilized, answering the call for help with unwavering determination. Convoys of trucks arrived from distant states, loaded with food, water, clothing, and blankets. Volunteers, some of whom had driven for days, worked tirelessly to unload supplies and distribute them to those in need. Medical teams set up temporary clinics, providing care to the injured and reassurance to the anxious. Firefighters waded through floodwaters to reach stranded families, while police officers directed traffic around damaged roads, ensuring that help could reach every corner of the affected area. Red Cross workers comforted children, offering a sense of safety in a world suddenly turned upside down. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, a reminder that in times of crisis, the bonds that unite Americans grow even stronger. People from all walks of life, students, retirees, business owners, and first responders, came together, each playing a vital role in the recovery effort. Their actions spoke volumes about the values that define the nation: compassion, generosity, and an unyielding commitment to one another. As the days turned into weeks, the recovery effort became a symbol of unity and hope. Crowds gathered in the heart of storm-ravaged neighborhoods, not just to rebuild homes, but to restore a sense of normalcy and belonging. American flags fluttered proudly from porches and storefronts, a quiet but powerful declaration that the community would endure. Diverse groups of people, young and old, newcomers, and lifelong residents, embraced each other, finding comfort in shared experience. Community vigils were held by candlelight, where people sang together and shared stories of survival. Local leaders addressed crowds with messages of hope, reminding everyone that brighter days lay ahead. Families worked side by side to rebuild their homes. Volunteers painted over water-stained walls, and children planted new trees in parks, determined to restore the beauty that had been lost. Through every act of kindness, every gesture of support, the world witnessed the true strength of the United States. It became clear that the nation's greatest asset was not its towering skyscrapers or vast resources, but the unity and resilience of its people. In the face of adversity, Americans came together, not just to survive, but to help one another thrive. And in doing so, they showed the world that the American spirit is not just an idea, but a living, breathing force, one that shines brightest when the night is darkest.